Like most people who grew up playing video games in the early 2000s, I love The Legend of Zelda. More specifically, Majora's Mask. I really didn't know how to play it. I didn't beat a temple until I was much older, but I still love just loading in, swinging that sword at the dog for the entirety of the game, like the 3 in-game days, and then skipping my ass up to get spanked by Skull Kid. I repeated that process for years until I got the collector's edition for the GameCube, and after that my cousin and I ransacked it, beat the game, teabagged Skull Kid, and then left it at that. I've revisited it in the past on the 3DS and played the N64 version again. I decided why not give it a try at making a fan art. I've tried to do it in the past, but I never really challenged myself and I always gave up, which is a real issue that I have. So now that I'm recording, I have a little bit more pressure on me that I put on myself, so I'm actually going to complete it. So here's a speed art of what I did with some commentary sprinkled in. You'll see a lot of back and forth in this video. I decided to leave in some things I did that didn't quite work, because whenever I watch a video of someone doing something similar to this, I always feel like they're doing it without making mistakes, and that kind of discourages me. And learning, as I'm doing this, that's not the case at all. I made plenty of mistakes doing this until I got what I wanted. It's really just about going back and forth and figuring out what works and what doesn't. I started with a vector shape that I traced out in Illustrator. It was just a basic trace that I did of the actual sprite from the N64. Then I started adding my wood textures. I found 3 that worked, so I layered them on top of each other and played around with the filters and liquify until they seemed to fit. I then took a 3D leaf model from Envato Elements to put on top. I opted for this over a real image because I thought the 3D model would give me more freedom if I wanted to play around with it. After that, I procrastinated for a while, as you can see by the pauses on screen. I tried to recreate the color difference that the N64 sprite had, but I realized that it really wouldn't look good, so I eventually abandoned that. I couldn't avoid it any longer, and I had to start putting shadows on this thing. I love doing it. It makes a piece go from absolute dog shit to something that's visually amazing, but it's also the thing that frustrates me the most. It took me a long time to get the eyes just how I wanted them, and I even deleted the exposure layer and started working on the leaves out of frustration. So what you're seeing doesn't actually stay. I gained confidence here. After seeing how great the leaves turned out, I knew I had it in me to complete this. Instead of getting frustrated and quitting, which is what I normally do, I just took a break on the task that I was getting frustrated with and did something simpler just to bring back that enjoyment, I guess I would say. The wood wasn't doing it for me, so I went and I got another texture. And that's one of my favorite things about just the internet in general, is that I can find any texture I want. Whether I'm using Unsplash or Envato, I have unlimited amount of options to choose from. This texture gave it a bit more depth, and I was able to add smaller shadows and highlights to the bumps in the texture. I don't think I actually kept any of these shadows in the final product, but whatever. In this next section, all I was doing was adding shadows and highlights until it looked somewhat okay. The more you understand lighting, the easier this becomes. It just takes time. I spend the bulk of my editing time just deleting and redoing exposure layers. I have a really hard time comprehending the 3D space of these 2D photos, so it's easy for me to forget that lighting wouldn't just go on the side of the object, but it would go on the top because it's like protruding upwards. Benny Productions actually has a really good lighting tutorial, and I've linked it in the description for anyone wanting to check that out. I went back and I did the eyes, and as you can see I did a lot of erasing and redoing. None of this is a tutorial. I'm not good enough to be giving people like design advice. It's just me logging the projects that I want to do. I do want to say one thing, and that is the best thing to do is just do. So it's not necessarily design advice, it's just something that's helped me remove a lot of my blocks about design. So instead of worrying about, oh, how am I supposed to do this, I've just now started to do it, and I learn as I go. So if that's something that anyone needed to hear, I just wanted to put that out there. I almost forgot about his hole. I reused one of the textures and started messing around with it, and I also added a texture around it because I thought it would look better if the bark was still covering the inner wood, if that makes sense. Because I think it's not like it goes from the barky wood to like this inner like more clean wood, so I had to add that outer thing to make it look like it's like an opening. Then the fun part of adding a background, and now this is gonna be great. If you see my mouse moving around all wild without anything, like no brush or anything attached to it, it's because I recorded audio while I was designing, so I'm talking to no one because I deleted the audio. The reason I didn't keep it because I decided to do a voiceover thing. I wanted to give it a try and see if I like it, and I gotta say I do like it. I basically just play around with lighting until I get what I want. Anything that deals with lighting, I'll click on it and then put the sliders to their extremes until I'm like, oh, you know, this can do something, and go on from there. I added fire and then I took it off, and then I re-add fire later. I don't know if this voiceover is going to be with the fire or after. Anyway, there's fire in my image. And with the fire, I needed embers. So embers, I used Benny Productions Optic Plus Pack, which I got. Definitely recommend to anyone starting out for sure. That's a great way to save time on getting effects. And then the fire I got was from a college person who liked my stuff. We went to the same school, a year younger than me. He sent me just like a pack of random textures and effects, and honestly, greatest thing. I really appreciate that dude. I finished off with a camera raw filter, and here's the final image. Overall, I think this design came out great. I think there's maybe one or two things that I would change, especially the shadow on the leaf right to the most right, because like it's right next to the fire, so technically it should be the brightest. But I'm just nitpicking my own stuff at that point. I'm excited for the next video. I'm going to be doing the Goron mask. I also just opened up an Instagram account. The @ is going to be in the description, so if you want, give me a follow, and I shall not see you in the next one, but you shall be hearing me. See ya.